All right, welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the world of GLP-1 drugs.
Oh, yeah.
These are the ones that have been making headlines for incredible results for both diabetes and obesity.
All right.
But there's a problem,
Uh-oh.
and you probably already know what it is.
I think I do.
Getting your hands on these medications is tough.
Really tough.
It's like Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, all facing major supply issues.
Wow.
In this deep dive, let's try to figure out what's causing these shortages
Yeah.
and also how the two companies that are really dominating this market,
Okay.
that's Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly,
Right.
how they're trying to tackle this problem.
Interesting.
Are we in for a long wait, or
Yeah.
what does the future look like?
Let's find out.
So,
It's really fascinating, isn't it? We've got these incredibly effective medications
yeah.
that are just in such high demand that even these huge companies are struggling to keep up.
Okay, so let's start with just this whole craze around GLP-1 drugs in the first place. It seems like everybody's talking about them.
Yeah, they've kind of exploded in popularity, haven't they?
Yeah, it's not just hype, though, is it? The data is pretty impressive.
The data is incredible, yeah.
Yeah.
The studies are showing some, really significant weight loss
Right.
and blood sugar control improvements.
Mm.
And, for a lot of people, these drugs really are like life-changing.
So what's fueling the demand? Obviously, the results are there, but what else is contributing to this besides just like the data?
I mean, I think you really can't overestimate the impact of social media.
Oh, interesting.
People are sharing their success stories online,
Oh, wow.
and it's just kind of spreading like wildfire.
So everybody wants the secret.
Everybody wants that, yeah.
Yeah.
The quick fix,
Especially when it seems achievable,
right?
but it's not as simple as just saying, okay, let's just make more pills. Right. What is it that makes these GLP-1 drugs so difficult to produce?
Yeah, so that's where things get a little more complicated.
Right.
We're not talking about your typical pill-making process here.
Right.
These are what are called biologics, which means they're derived from living organisms.
Oh, wow.
And that requires really specialized facilities,
Okay.
rigorous quality control, a ton of regulatory oversight.
Okay.
So it's a much slower and more intricate process. I guess you could think of it like, baking a cake from scratch is a lot more involved than just opening a box of like pre-made cake mix.
That's a good analogy, yeah.
Yeah.
So even if the companies are like throwing tons of money at this,
Right.
they can't just flip a switch and be like,
Yeah.
right, now we're going to make millions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't just, scale this up overnight,
Right.
even with, all the best intentions and the best resources. It takes time.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, the patients are the ones feeling the impact of this. We're seeing reports of people struggling to even fill their prescriptions,
Wow.
especially for those kind of crucial starter doses of Wegovy and Mounjaro.
So it's almost like everyone's rushing to get a slice of cake.
Right.
But the bakers are still figuring out.
They're still working on the recipe.
Yeah. How to make enough.
Exactly.
So that brings us to Novo Nordisk.
Okay.
This is the company behind Ozempic and Wegovy.
Right.
They're facing this supply crunch head on.
They are.
But even despite that, their sales figures are crazy.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that Ozempic sales jumped like 58% in 2023.
It's crazy, isn't it?
And Wegovy sales went from like 3.7 billion to 22 billion Danish kroner
Wow.
in just 1 year.
That's amazing.
So how are they ramping up production to meet this crazy demand?
I mean, they're really pulling out all the stops.
Yeah.
So for starters, they're investing billions of dollars into expanding existing facilities
Okay.
and building new ones from the ground up. In 2024 alone, they earmarked a staggering $6.8 billion
$6.8 billion.
for production investments.
Wow.
And a huge chunk of that $4.1 billion is going towards what's called fill-finish capacity.
Fill-finish capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is that?
So that's the final stage of the manufacturing process.
Okay.
I guess you could think of it like putting the icing on the cake and boxing it up.
Okay.
So the drug substance is put into vials or syringes, packaged up, and made ready for distribution.
Got it.
And it turns out that this is actually a major bottleneck.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's not just about making more of the drug itself, it's also about getting it packaged and out the door to patients.
So even if they have like tons and tons of the drug, if
Yeah.
they can't get it in a package, It's all for nothing.
It's no good, yeah.
So Novo Nordisk is doing more than just internal expansion.
They are, yeah.
They made a strategic move, and they acquired Catalent,
Right.
which is a huge player in pharmaceutical manufacturing.
So-
Didn't Catalent own some really big manufacturing sites?
Yeah, they own some key sites.
Yeah.
And now 3 of those sites are under Novo Nordisk's control.
Wow.
So this gives them a pretty big immediate boost to that fill finish capacity.
That makes sense.
But even still, it's going to take some time to fully integrate those facilities.
So it's a long game for Novo Nordisk,
It is.
but with immediate benefits.
Right.
Are they doing anything else to kind of
I mean, they've also implemented what they're calling a responsible launch strategy.
okay.
And this has been in certain markets like the UK and Germany.
Oh, okay.
And essentially what they're doing is prioritizing existing patients
Got it.
over new starts.
Okay.
So making sure that people who are already on these medications can continue their treatment without any interruption.
Right. So it's a balance.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what about Eli Lilly? They're in the same boat with Mounjaro, right?
Yeah, they are, yeah. And Mounjaro is facing incredible demand.
It seems like that one's especially hard to get.
It is. So much so that Eli Lilly actually missed some of their revenue projections.
Really?
Yeah, they fell short of Wall Street's expectations by $200 million
Wow.
in the first quarter of 2024 alone.
Just the first quarter?
Yeah,
Wow. So they are definitely scrambling to catch up.
they are.
But are they taking a similar approach to Novo Nordisk?
So they're taking a slightly different approach.
Okay.
They are investing heavily in expansion as well,
Okay.
over $18 billion since 2020.
Wow. Man.
But their focus is more on building their own manufacturing capacity rather than going on like a buying spree like Novo Nordisk did.
So they're building it themselves from the ground up.
They are, yeah. They're constructing new facilities,
Okay.
upgrading existing ones,
Wow.
with a goal of increasing production by 60% by the middle of 2025.
It's pretty aggressive considering everything we just talked about.
It is.
Are they doing all that alone, or are they getting some help?
So they're using a little bit of both strategies,
Oh,
or they are building a lot of their own stuff,
Okay.
but they're also partnering with some companies like National Resilience and BSP Pharmaceuticals
Okay.
to handle some of those crucial fill-finish steps.
So that's the way to scale it up a little faster
Exactly.
without having to do every single step themselves.
Right.
Could that backfire at all?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, there's always a risk when you're not in complete control
Yeah.
when you're working with outside companies.
Right.
And if you remember Novo Nordisk's acquisition of Catalent,
Right.
well, that adds another layer of complexity here
Oh, how so?
because now Novo Nordisk owns a large portion of Eli Lilly's potential manufacturing capacity.
Oh, wow. So that's a little bit of a conflict.
It is, yeah. So, existing contracts will most likely be honored.
No.
But it is reasonable to think that future expansions at Catalent might be prioritized to serve Novo Nordisk's products first.
So Eli Lilly might want to start thinking about some backup plans
Yeah, they might need a plan B.
in case their current setup gets a little shaky.
Exactly.
So it's a really high-stakes game
It is, yeah.
with these two giants.
Yeah.
And they're both making these moves to kind of dominate this market.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, the real winners are going to be the patients, right?
Right.
Who can finally get access to these medications.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
It's crazy when you think about how much the science has advanced.
it really is, yeah.
And now we have the challenge of just like scaling it to meet the need.
We're playing catch up. Yeah.
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 It's like we invented a teleportation device,
Okay.
but we still haven't figured out how to build the spaceships to get everyone there.
It's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it really highlights how important investing in infrastructure and long-term planning is.
Yeah.
This isn't just about meeting today's demand. This is about anticipating future needs as these medications become even more popular.
So we've covered a lot today.
We have.
We talked about the science. We talked about the manufacturing hurdles
Yeah.
and all the different strategies these companies are using
It's
to
fascinating.
try to meet this crazy demand.
It is.
But I feel like we need to shift our focus now to the patient experience,
I think that's a great idea.
because what can they do while they're waiting for the supply to catch up?
Right.
It can't be easy trying to navigate this whole landscape of shortages
No, it's
and
tough.
delays.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what advice do you have for our
Mhm.
listeners who might be in that exact situation?
Okay. Well, the big question on everyone's mind is, when is the supply going to catch up with this crazy demand?
Right, like how long are we going to have to wait?
Exactly, and unfortunately, it's not going to be a quick fix.
Okay.
It's going to take some time.
Uh-huh.
We're probably looking at supply constraints lasting until at least 2025.
Okay.
Maybe even stretching into 2026.
So a couple more years.
At least a couple more years, yeah.
Wow, so a couple more years of shortages?
It looks like it, yeah.
And waiting lists, I mean...
Right, and that's, that's got to be frustrating.
Yeah, it's got to be frustrating.
For patients who are, eager to start these treatments.
Right, they're hearing all this great stuff, and then they can't even get it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to remember that both Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly are putting a lot of resources toward fixing this problem.
Yeah, they're investing billions, like we said.
Billions of dollars.
But they're taking different approaches.
Slightly different approaches, yeah.
Yeah, so let's break down the timelines a little bit more.
Sure.
Let's start with Novo Nordisk.
Okay.
What's their outlook?
Well, they're really counting on that Catalent acquisition to speed things up.
Okay.
They're hoping to see some positive results within the next couple of quarters.
Okay.
But even with that acquisition, fully integrating those facilities into their operations is going to take a bit longer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like merging two giant baking companies, right?
Right.
It's going to take some time to get everybody on the same page.
Look at the ovens firing.
And the ovens firing at the same time.
In sync.
Exactly.
Yeah, what about their other expansion efforts, the ones they're building from scratch?
Right, so those are much more long-term projects.
Yeah.
Their new facilities in Clayton, North Carolina, and Chartres, France.
Cool.
Those aren't expected to be fully up and running until sometime between 2026 and 2029.
So they're thinking way ahead.
They're playing the long game, yeah.
But with the acquisition, they're also looking for those short-term wins.
Exactly.
All right, so with Novo Nordisk, we might see some relief in the near future.
Maybe.
Because of that acquisition.
Hopefully.
But the real impact is going to come a few years down the road.
Right.
When these new sites come online.
Right.
So what about Eli Lilly's timeline?
Okay, so...
They're aiming for that 60% production increase by mid-2025, right?
That is their stated goal.
Which is sooner...
Which is much sooner, yeah.
Than those big Novo Nordisk plants.
Right, and that could be really good news for patients who are waiting for Mounjaro.
Right.
But, we have to remember that Eli Lilly is relying on these other companies for those fill-finish steps.
Right.
And that introduces some uncertainty.
Oh, yeah.
If there are any disruptions with those partnerships,
right,
it could really mess up their plans.
And then there's that whole thing with Novo Nordisk now owning Catalent.
Right.
Is that going to affect Eli Lilly's ability to get access to get that fill-finish work done?
I mean, it's certainly a valid concern.
Yeah.
As I said before, I think existing contracts will probably be honored.
Okay.
But it is reasonable to think that in the future, any expansions at Catalent might prioritize Novo Nordisk's needs first.
Right. Okay. So Eli Lilly might need to really think about...
They might need to think about...
Some backup plans.
A backup plan.
In case things go south.
Exactly. They might need to secure some new partnerships or build even more of their own facilities.
Yeah. They need, like, a plan B. Basically.
Yeah, exactly.
If their current setup gets a little shaky.
They need a plan B.
So both companies are looking at these long lead times.
Right. It's not going to happen overnight. Yeah. But they are investing a lot.
It's
a complex situation.
It's a complex situation with a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, and a little bit of drama, I would say.
A little bit of drama, yeah.
But there's reason to be optimistic.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
These medications have the potential to really revolutionize how we treat diabetes and obesity.
It's pretty incredible when you think about it.
It is.
Yeah.
The science has advanced so rapidly.
Right.
And now the challenge is just figuring out how to scale it up.
Yeah, it's almost like we've discovered this treasure chest full of gold, but we're still trying to figure out how to open it up and share the wealth.
That's a great analogy. And do it fairly.
It is.
Yeah. So this whole thing makes me wonder, what other innovations are just around the corner?
Oh, that's a great question.
What other disruptions could we see in healthcare as this technology keeps developing?
That's the most exciting part. We're at the forefront of something really big here.
Yeah.
And the possibilities are just endless.
What could it look like in 5-10 years?
I mean, we could see new delivery systems,
Okay.
personalized treatments that are tailored to your specific genes,
Wow.
or even completely new types of drugs
Okay.
that target these conditions in ways that we can't even imagine right now.
That's wild.
It's a really exciting time to be in this field.
So we've talked about the timelines,
We've talked
the
about
potential risks,
the rewards.
the rewards, and the
Yeah.
impact on all these patients that are waiting.
Exactly.
But as you said earlier,
Right.
this story doesn't end with just making more drugs. There's a whole other piece to this,
Absolutely.
which is, what does it mean for patients right now
Yeah, what can they do
while they're waiting?
while they're waiting for all of this to catch up?
It's got to be tough to hear about these incredible drugs.
It is.
And then you find out
And then you can't get them.
you can't get them.
Yeah.
What advice do you have?
Well, first of all, for these people.
Don't give up. Don't give up hope.
Right.
The situation is getting better.
Okay.
It's just, it's happening slowly.
Yeah.
The most important thing is to talk to your doctor.
Right.
Be open with them. Tell them what's going on.
Okay.
They can help you figure out what to do,
Okay.
whether that's looking at other medications
Okay.
or, working with your pharmacist to find available supplies.
It's almost like
It's a challenge, yeah.
like a scavenger hunt or something.
It is.
Yeah.
For your health,
Yeah.
which is pretty stressful.
It can be. Yeah.
Are there any resources or strategies that patients can use to be more proactive in this?
Yeah. Definitely. I think
Yeah.
staying informed is really important.
Okay.
Keep an eye on the news, see what the companies are saying.
Okay.
They often put out updates on production timelines and
Wow.
how the supply is improving.
Got it.
There are also some great patient advocacy groups out there
Oh, okay.
and online forums
Okay.
where people share information and support each other.
It's like they're all in it together.
They are, yeah.
Yeah.
They're figuring it out as they go.
Right.
And that sense of community
Yeah.
can be really helpful in these situations.
But I imagine it can be frustrating
Oh,
to
absolutely.
feel like you're kind of stuck in limbo,
Right.
just not knowing.
Not knowing when you'll be able to get these medications.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, this highlights something really important.
Okay.
Patients need to advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask questions. And let your healthcare providers know about the challenges you're facing.
This whole situation is it's pretty crazy when you think about it.
It is.
It really highlights the impact
It does.
of these drugs.
Yeah.
It's not just hype. There's a real need
It's real.
and a real demand.
Yeah, and it shows you how far we've come.
Yeah.
We have these incredible tools now
Yeah.
to tackle these chronic conditions like
Right.
diabetes and obesity.
Right. But now the challenge is
The challenge is getting them to everyone who needs them.
making them accessible
Exactly.
to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that brings us to the end of today's deep dive
Does.
into the world of GLP-1 drugs.
Right.
We hope you found this
Informative.
insightful. And
Interesting.
as always, we encourage you to keep learning, keep asking questions,
Yeah.
and keep advocating for your health.
Your health is the most important thing.
All right. So until next time.
Stay curious.